Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. This is Kyle Nash, the Stin of the Game. Welcome in. And if you're here, chances are you like talking sport. We're glad you're doing it with us here tonight. Welcome in. To say football events this weekend were fun is just the beginning of the conversation. I gotta admit, it took a bit to get used to the whole concept of the during the week, then leading into NFL playoff Sunday stuff with college football, but that all went pretty well. Notre Dame taking care of business to supplant Penn State, while Ohio State did what they did to hook the Longhorns in their own right. We have a national championship set up that will be played Monday. And listen, I'm going to get into it first off by talking about the college football playoff such that it is. And here's the thing, guys. No one's going to like hearing this, but the fact of the case remains. This particular football national championship is what's wrong with the college football playoff. Now, I get it. This isn't going to be like the last time Notre Dame was in a national championship. It's not going to be as egregious as the BSC putting in a team that didn't belong there, that hid behind a sorry schedule, and then got demolished by an Alabama team that went on to basically make Nick Saban famous in college football. I don't think that's happening here. Let me lead with that. Let me go on record with that. That being said, Ohio State got here hiding behind a schedule populated with overrated teams in the Big Ten. Indiana, nothing. Penn State couldn't win their one big game. At least Notre Dame won their one big game on their schedule in Texas A&M. Grant that, not taking that from them, and as much as I have made fun of Notre Dame regarding Northern Illinois and all of that, I'm not even really holding that against them the same way I am Ohio State. Their biggest game, of course, was a 1-point loss to the team that was ranked number one for a good portion of the year and was the number one seed in these college football playoffs, whom they later exposed like Janet Jackson in a halftime show and showed the world Dylan Gabriel the fraud that he is. But the teams that played the hardest schedule got penalized. I'm not going away from stressing this. And why is it so important to continue to remind the public at large that it's the problem? It's because it's the problem that introducing the college football playoff in its 4-team format and eventually to the 12-team format that it is today, the problem that was supposed to be solved is that we got better games during the year because more teams didn't hide behind their weak schedules. The ACC sent a former G5 team and a Clemson team that frankly did not belong. And I get it. One of them had to be there because they're a power conference winner. To an extent, I can allow that. That's not a problem. I don't have a problem with Arizona State being in. They should not have had a bye. I don't have a problem with one G5 team making it in the form of the Boise State Broncos. But then again, they too should not have gotten a bye. I think we have been over those flaws ad nauseum, and they're obvious. By the way, over and above all of that, they need to reseed the tournament, clearly. But what you're telling me is a team that got to hide behind 4 G5 teams, by the way, losing to one of them, I did it, I said I was going to mention it, I mentioned it again, whatever, is a problem. Notre Dame, to their credit, by the way, I can't stress this enough. From a business perspective, they stealing from y'all. They're not the member of a conference. They don't have to share the revenue, and every bit of revenue they get from a playoff win, they pocket. It's insane. In a world where NIL is a thing, by the way, you have Notre Dame pocketing tens of millions of dollars from winning a playoff to the point that they have, in a playoff to the point that they have. And then a school like Boise State has to share their stuff with the rest of the Mountain West. It's asinine. But what makes it such a great business move for Notre Dame? They happen to have a team that's good enough to go in, win multiple playoff games. They're playing with literal house money at this point. And what's the air quotes punishment? What's the air quotes risk for doing it? Oh, they can't get a first round bye. So, give me my money. Right? What was it Flavor Flav said? According to Cat Williams, they got to pay me, boy. So whatever disadvantage Notre Dame has and not having a bye, they get right back by having a sorry, piss poor schedule where they hide behind the ACC and behind the G5. Oh, well, it's tradition. Yeah, great. Notre Dame playing Navy and Army is tradition. Cool. Oh, but they were ranked this year. Great. They won the American Athletic Conference. There's a team that beat the SEC Conference champion and was left home as the playoffs started. Oh, stop waiting for Alabama. No, I'm waiting for tougher schedules. Stop hiding. This isn't FSU and Bobby Bowden. Winning a basketball conference to get a national chip was the whole reason we are here, to have a college football playoff. Indiana violates that. Penn State violates that. It's just horrid. That being said, and here's, for all the trash I've talked on Notre Dame, here's the part where they were positive in this tournament, folks. Notre Dame is what I'm going to start referring to as the baseline team. Every year, I'm going to find a team in the college football playoff whose sole purpose for being there, and who knows, it may be Notre Dame multiple years, right? But Notre Dame's sole purpose for being in the tournament is, if you're so good and haven't proven yourself, Indiana, great example, you should be able to beat us if you're the national champion you think your fan base is. Oh, you aren't? Peace. And by the way, this goes to Georgia, too. This isn't just about me standing for the SEC, though clearly every SEC school, for the most part, had a better schedule overall than anybody else in the nation. That's not arguable, okay? But Georgia had a hurt quarterback. They couldn't clear the bar. That was Notre Dame. They didn't belong in a national championship. Penn State, you had the easiest road in the playoffs. All you had to do was to beat the baseline team for a shot at a national championship. Couldn't do it. Wasn't prudent at that juncture. For all my complaints about Notre Dame hiding behind the schedule, they did this much. They were the baseline team that made sure that teams that didn't belong, didn't belong. Now, Ohio State, the challenge is yours. You have a relatively low bar. If you can't clear it, Buckeyes, I have no problem. Despite their fact that their schedule sucks and completely violates the exercise of what the college football playoff was always meant to solve, they still deserved it. That's all I have to say about that. About this college football stuff, let's get into the pros. We got another set of fine playoff games upcoming, and I have an extra special guy. Listen, lately when I've been talking to Lions, I've been going to this dude. I follow his Twitter feed as much as I can. You non-believers can call him Chris Henry, and that's cool. But me, I call him CHen. What's going on, my man, CHen? How you doing?
What's going on, Kyle? Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you back.
Weekend coming up.
Hey, listen, when I get a job and next Christmas comes, I'm going to buy you a grit hat. Because on this podcast, I don't care how we feel about the Lions, but we love what Dan Campbell's done. You need a grit hat. We're going to make that happen. We'll work on that. We'll talk off air. I'll get your address, right?
I'll gladly accept it. Kyle.
So, man, listen. Just here's the thing. And I think I'm going to go into this first because I think you and I both know what the biggest question is, and that's overcoming the various injuries, right? The good news is Sonic and Knuckles are Sonic and Knuckles again. All right. I feel good about that. Obviously, there are other teams that are missing big weapons in these playoffs. You know, the Ravens and Zay Flowers come to mind. I don't think you're there offensively. Defensively, I got questions.
Okay.
So, from your perspective, let's lead there. What do you think if you were sitting in the place where Dan Quinn was, and you're assessing, you and your coaching staff's assessing how to attack the Lions to take advantage of the roster spots that are missing, how do you approach it?
So, obviously we've been a little bit susceptible to the pass in the passing game. We don't have Carlton Davis III at cornerback. But with that being said, I think that getting Alex Anzalone back was a big addition for us. He's a solid player. Definitely knows the scheme, and also allows us to have a coach on the field. He kind of gets guys in the right position, gets guys in the right gaps in front of him, communicates to the secondary what he sees and what defense we're in. And I think just having him on the field made an immediate impact as you saw from the Minnesota game. Obviously, we don't have Aiden Hutchinson. We don't have Aleem McNeil. So that severely affects our pass rush. But we've been able to get it done. We've been doing it a variety of different ways. A little bit of blitzing here, surprising performances by Mr. Muhammad, who starts at defensive end for us. Levi Onzariki has made an impact on the inside when he's been healthy, and Josh Pascal. So it's kind of been a team effort. But it's going to be interesting, man. I would say this. I think at times we're susceptible. Our linebackers are susceptible in space. So I look for Austin Eckler to kind of be, utilized against us in a multitude of ways, possibly in the screen game, in the short passing game. One thing that we pride ourselves on is stopping the run. We're top 5 team against the run on defense. So we try to get teams in those predictable passing down situations and hope to be able to stop them. If we can't make a play on the ball, hey, make a play on the guy, man. Tackle the guy, get him down, and get another set of downs to play. Don't let them have a lot of yards after the play. And we've been very, very successful in causing turnovers. We got Kirby Joseph with 9 interceptions this year. Brian Branch has got 4 interceptions. Those guys have been making big plays on the back end for us, and also in the applying pressure in the blitz game for us. So if you're Dan Quinn, I think you definitely try to, whatever they've been doing so far has been working. They put up a lot of points over there. Jaden Daniels is definitely an upcoming talent. He's definitely what they call a force multiplier over there. He's brought the best out of Terry McLaurin over there. So a little bit
Scary
of a very attack there. But attack, I would say if I were them, I would try to attack our DBs and see if we can have some success with Terry McLaurin and Eckler and possibly Zach Ertz.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you're saying there too. By the way, you mentioned Branch. Like when he first came into the league, I know he was in my conversation for rookie year at the time when that was relevant for him. And it's a funny thing. If you can't get to the ball, get to the man, or as Dan Campbell put it, if you can't get to the ball, you better come back with a kneecap bit.
You better come back with a kneecap. You better come back.
That's right.
You can't go too far without one. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I like what you're saying about, them attacking through the air first. That makes a lot of sense. And I feel like the Commanders should attack. It's interesting because it's a very Bill Walshian approach, right? Use that pass to then set up the run game that you have with not only the running backs, but Jaden Daniels as well. So I feel like there's an element to that. Coming out throwing, I think, is the right move. Defensively, I have to say, I'm not going to say that they're a bad defense. That is a bridge too far. Defensively, with what you guys have, and by the way, the reason why there are people out there, not just Jacksonville Jaguars fans, by the way, but the reason why there are people out there talking about Aaron Glenn as a coaching candidate, Duval Dive among them, by the way, my friend Travis Holmes in our Duval Dive series of coaching candidate profiles for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The reason why Aaron Glenn is out there as a coaching candidate is because the injuries didn't seem to matter a whole lot. They still found a way to play good defense. So I think that's worthy of mention here. But the other place, what Ben Johnson has done to make himself also a coaching candidate, taking interviews going into this playoff game, has been, there's just so many ways these guys can put up points. Mm-hmm. If I said to you, were I coaching the Commanders, my goal first and foremost is to make sure I'm in the game at the end of the first quarter. I can't let this blow wide open. Would you say that that's a fair goal?
You know what? Yeah. I think that's, no one wants to be behind the 8 ball. No one wants to be behind the 8 ball. But I will say this: with these two defenses, I do like my defense. I know that we're a little bit weathered in terms of injury, but I like our defense. With these two defenses, I don't think either one of these offenses is out of the game, though. So I think if anyone falls behind by maybe 2 scores, 10 points, 14 points early, it's not the end of the game. Both of these teams, have shown the propensity to put up consistent points. Both of these teams have shown the propensity to create timely turnovers. So it's not the end all be all. I've been talking to a lot of Commander fans all week, and they have really, JD5, they love him. That's their guy. Definitely they're enamored with him. And they keep talking about, just staying in the game until the end, and then hoping that he does his magic. And so to your point, and I know you only got to the first quarter. I'm more concerned of being up, maybe two scores late in the game. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Not allowing them to have that late game magic. You know what I'm saying? Or putting that pressure on them to push them, to make them push and not be comfortable. Like, okay, we have to get within field goal range, milk the clock a little bit, get 3 points, and walk away with a win. No, be up by 10, 13 points with 5 or 6 minutes to go. So they have to really have to put the pedal to the metal and chase us if possible.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I hope I didn't jump the gun a little bit.
No, you were great, homie. No, that's a good response, because this took me to a question I had anyway. See, this is what they refer to in the business as a hell of a segue by you, Carlton Henry. Okay, I'm trying to tell you. But let me take it here. You make the point about 10 points or more, trying to make it a 2-score game. Exactly where I was going. The reason why I mentioned the first quarter is the best way to prevent that from happening is to keep it in range in the first quarter and build on the game, and then get those halftime adjustments and see who you could shock. I think I made the comparison to a kind of that Tim Tebow stretch that was in Denver the year that he had his year and won his playoff game. Because certainly the Commanders have that kind of vibe to me, to be that scary out of nowhere team. Listen, some of us picked them to beat the Bucks last week on the Soon of the Game podcast. But where Dan Campbell is unique, and Dan Quinn in his own right, that's a separate conversation. Where Dan Campbell is unique are those decisions to be aggressive and to not tank the points. The argument needs to be made that what says fourth games in the fourth quarter for the Lions being risky, as it were, needs to be curtailed in this game. If they're up 7 and it's 4th and whatever on the red zone, I think you need to take the points here. Do you think Dan Campbell will capitulate to that?
You know what? It really depends on the flow of the game. Now, what really scared me is that Dan Quinn got the go for it on 4th down bug this last game and was really aggressive. Now I'm like, man, there may not be any punts in this game. But, when it comes down to Dan and his aggressiveness, to me, I've been kind of 50-50 kind of on the fence with him. Sometimes I love it. I like the overall attitude and the overall of, the gumption that we at any time that we can go for it. I love that, that type of attitude with us. But at times I do, feel like we should take the points at times, because we need to make sure we don't need to create a momentum builder for the other team. When we get it, that's great. It's great for us. But when we don't get it, it becomes basically a turnover for the other team, which is basically a momentum boost for them. And I think at times there is some times where he should just take the points. But with that being said, his aggressiveness is what really has gotten us here. At times we've been able to win games in spite of his aggressiveness when it does not work out. So hopefully, I think it's going to be, in terms of this game, I think it's going to be a flow. If we're flowing well and our defense is playing well and we have confidence that we can get off the field and we are not in a track meet, then I think he's more likely to say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to get the points and make them chase me further. Now, if we're getting in a track meet and they're scoring and we're scoring and they're scoring and we're scoring, and it gets to that situation where who's going to get the ball last, and you get into a real decisive 4th and 4, 4th and 3, 4th and 5 situation at the 35, 40-yard line, then you might see Dan make that decision. One thing that is going to give me a little bit more confidence is that I think Dan has much more confidence in the kicking game this year. Last year, he didn't have very much confidence in the kicker from anywhere outside of basically 45 yards, and that severely limited us in terms of what we can do and when we decided to kick points. I think he has much more confidence, and we have much more, a little bit, maybe about 8 to 10 more yards of distance, if you will, with Michael Bates. Wouldn't we all like to have a little bit more distance?
Yeah, fair point. I get you. Man, listen. Well, and see, that's the thing. And I like that you bring up the pace of the game. But like, again, if the goal is to assure 2-score leads at all times, I feel like even in a track meet, Dan Campbell being okay with taking the points. And I love the point you made that he's felt better about it than he has in the past, to go ahead, get the kicker out there, do the job. So there's that too. But and you made the accommodating point. You can't have fewer punts than 0. So you can't get negative punts. But if there was a game where it might happen, it is the Dan Bowl. I agree with you. What, from your perspective, well, I'll put it this way. We mentioned the balanced offense and what they bring. And let's be honest, the main reason why I never even considered Jared Goff as an MVP candidate is less about me thinking he's not worthy and more about disrespecting the other pieces of that team that are so central to making him do what he does. If there was a piece, like you got Knuckles back, I get it. But if there was a piece for that offense that was taken away, that's not named Jared Goff, who's the biggest blow?
What do you mean in terms of injury,
like,
or are you mean
injury, whatever? Like, who do you think is really kind of the most?
You know what? The offense is the offense, and we do have so many weapons. I'm not concerned if someone is schematically taken out of the game. To answer your question, it's probably going to be Amon Ra, but we've won games when he has been schematically taken away from us. We got guys like Laporta, we got guys like JMO who can make plays, we got Gibbs who can make plays in the passing game. Also, some of our secondary ancillary players have been, stepping up and making plays in games. So I'm not worried about anyone taken out of the game. Gibbs, because Monty is coming back from injury and we don't fully know his functionality for this game. We don't know if he's going to be able to carry a full load, a complementary load, just kind of spot duty. I don't know. So Gibbs, basically, in my mind, I'm going into this game thinking that he's definitely going to get 75 to 80% of the ball, of the touches in this game. If he gets to rolling, we're probably going to, ride him.
Yeah.
So with that being said, if he goes down for some reason, he took a big hit last game on a screen pass and got put right in the dirt. Didn't look good. Came immediately out. Everybody kind of held their breath. You know what I'm saying? But if he goes down, then that becomes a tough part because, a lot of our game is predicated off the run game and off the play action. And he does make a big impact in the passing game as well, creating a lot of matches for their secondary. Their second level defenders, linebackers, and sometimes the safeties as well. So if he went down,
don't leave out the secondary. I think you said it right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think you said that right. Well, and I would have said Gibbs as well too. You enunciated it well that he actually impacts more than one part of the football game on offense. So that's certainly a huge aspect of it too. The question I pose is this. The Lions win the football game if.
Man, I want to be so respectful because I really like what the Commanders are doing. Those are my folks. I hang out in spaces with them every day. So those are my folks. But we win the game if we win the defensive battle. We both know how good both of these offenses are. Who can get the occasional stop? I need 2 stops a half. I think if I get 2 stops a half in this game, I'll be okay. If I can get an additional turnover and get some favorable field position, I'll be okay. So I'll tell you like this. If we win the turnover battle, I think we win this game. If we win the time of possession battle, I think we win this game. I think we can turn this game into a track meet, but I also think that facing the 30th ranked run defense in the league, we also have the possibilities that we can run the football and shorten the game and shorten their possessions. If we shorten their possessions and then get 1 or 2 stops to go along with it, now their scoring ability is greatly reduced. So we can win a lot of different ways. We've been in the track meets, we've been in the slugfest, we've been in the low scoring games as well, kind of slug it out games. So we can play any type of way. I think if we win the turnover battle and or time of possession, we win this game, Kyle.
Yeah, I think that's hard to I think that's hard to argue with this juncture too. I like when you said all that, where my mind kind of went was like each side has a turnover. Lions are, let's say, well, no, not the Lions. Let's say the Commanders are, let's say 5 third down conversions of 9, that kind of thing, right? So then I got your 2 stops a half in there too. You noticed that? So,
yeah.
I don't want to hear about analytics. You gave me a scenario. I spit the numbers back out. Where else have you seen that? Boom!
So,
come on, CHen.
When you look at their game against when you look at their game against Tampa Bay, right? The playoff game, 23-20. I mean, not really tremendously high scoring game.
And I
Tampa Bay
expect the Red
offensively
Tails
did not
and
play
Bucks would be a high
terribly.
scoring one.
They didn't play terribly. Baker Mayfield, I think, was 15 or 18. He only threw for 185 yards. They had the costly turnover deep in their territory that led to some points. Now there was some opportunities that Washington had earlier in that game in the red zone that they didn't quite capitalize on. Went for it on fourth down a couple times. They could have took some points and probably made the game easier on themselves. But
Baker felt guilty. We get it.
They won in spite. They won in spite.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But with that being said, the running backs, Bucky Irving, 17 carries for 77 yards in that game. They had over 100 yards rushing. They had average 4 yards a carry rushing. The biggest problem in that game is that they turned the ball over, and that Washington was somehow able to control the clock. They had I think they held the ball 32 or 34 minutes of that ball game. Were able to close them out late, as well as keep the ball out of Baker's hands. So again, they didn't even have an effective running game, and I'm sorry, Tampa Bay didn't even have that. I mean, it was effective, but Washington didn't have that effective running game. But they still were able to control the clock and control the time of possession. If we can kind of in turn implement their game plan with our running game, I think that we can do the same thing that they did to Tampa Bay to them. Basically, smother them, take the possessions away from them and stop their scoring opportunities.
And yeah, see, Hen, listen, this takes us back to the Jahmyr Gibbs point. Like, you can have a running game without handing the football off, right? There's plenty of Tom Brady, New England Patriot, boring offenses that won Super Bowls by not handing the ball off so much as doing an extended handoff using bubble screens and such, right? And I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a huge, huge part of that concept. There's no question. That being said, I feel like there's an element there too where I'm with you. I wouldn't say that the run game of the Commanders is the most threatening thing, but what I can't get past, what is your heart rate when it's a 6-point game, 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter?
10 minutes left. 10 minutes left. I think we can probably score 2 more times. I'm not worried about it. I'm a little bit worried when it's maybe 3 or 4 minutes left. But with that being said, I think there are going to be 4 key factors. I'm gonna give you an Enters the Lab exclusive. This is what I'm going to say for tomorrow for my show, but I'm gonna give it to you guys. I think
we'll give you a bell for that.
There are 4 key guys on our defense who I'm going to call our 4 X factors. They're Alex Anzalone and Jack Campbell at the linebacker spot, and Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph at the safety spot. All 4 of those guys are going to be asked to be superhuman on Saturday. They're going to be asked to play the run, come downhill and play the run. They're going to be asked to defend players like Zach Ertz and Eckler in space. They're going to be asked to blitz and put pressure on JD5. They're going to be asked to possibly chase down JD5 if he decides to run the football. You're going to probably see a lot of Brian Branch blitzing off the edge. He's going to be in the slot a little bit, as well as safety, blitzing off the edge, and as well as back in coverage. You're probably going to see Kirby Joseph doing a little bit of shading towards, Terry McLaurin. So those 4 guys are going to be asked to play every phase of our defense. And if those 4 guys have excellent games, good to excellent games, hey, it can be a long day. It can be a long day. We're talking about 13 interceptions between Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. And again, we're talking about roughly 200 plus tackles between Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone. So those guys are going to be big for us.
Yeah, no, to say the least. And I remember the whole reason Jack Campbell was even drafted was to get some, because that's when they were trying to really impact the run defense that was struggling at that point. I remember that for sure. I saw his Citrus Bowl game with Iowa there as they did what they did. And we'll leave that at that. That's what it was here locally in Orlando. So I saw the man in person. What did I say? I had to bring that up. It's prediction time. See, yes. What do you got for me?
So, the spread on the game is 9.5. I think that's a little bit too much. It would not surprise me if this game got slightly out of hand, but I am expecting a very, very close game. I do expect us to kind of get into a little bit of a race. But I think things settle down a little bit in the second half. And again, I'm expecting that timely turnover on our end, on our defensive end, getting that turnover either early or a couple early, or maybe, one crucially late. I'm predicting a 30-24 victory for my Detroit Lions at home, advancing to the NFC Championship round. Hard
You
fought,
got
man.
some angry people with that unders currently set at 55 and a
50,
half.
55 and a half is a lot. 55 and a half is a lot. But guess what? Some of these key stops are going to be field goals for both teams. They're going to be like, oh, we held them to 3. We held them to 3. We can do that. I don't know if it's going to be after a long drive and someone gets down in there and can't get punched the ball in the end zone. I don't know if it's going to be after a timely turnover on either side. Goff has had a few games where he's had some timely turnovers, but I think going to be a couple of crucial field goals. I think we score one more touchdown than they do in terms of those 5 scores. They kicked 3 field goals. We and scored 2 touchdowns. We kicked 2 field goals. No, 3 field goals, I guess, and scored 3 touchdowns. So 6-5.
Okay, so
sorry, over under, guys. Take the under.
Yeah, take the under. The slight under, says Carlton Henry, the great CHen in the building. Man, listen, when you go back to the lab, be careful with those speakers, do all that, but make sure you have everybody enter the lab to check out you building on the points you made here. Let me give you one more bell. Entering the lab a little early here. Give us that free study answer book there, man. I appreciate that.
I got to go find some other nuggets, some new nuggets for tomorrow. Check us out, 7 p.m. live, man. Red Zone in the lab.
Perfect, man. No, I'm glad you did it. Of course, at CHen313 on the socials. Make sure you find my guy, of course. And listen, I like that you're warning people about the under, but I'm with you. I'm not the degenerate. I don't bet the games, but I do feel like a 9.5 point spread is a metric butt ton when JD5's in the building. I think he'll make it closer than that. I'm with you on that. So until next time, my friend.
Real quick.
Sure, drop it.
That 8.5 for Houston, for those who do bet. You might want to look at that one too. That looks a little bit much for me too, but hey.
The dude with the Lions hat says they're going to win by less. Pay attention. That's all I'm saying. See you, Hen. You take care of yourself, brother, man.
Thank you, Kyle. Always a pleasure, man. Have a great one.
Yes, sir. Well, we'll go put CHen back to that. The great Carlton Henry in the building. I mean, listen, the only way you can get more Lion Homer is if you have my next guest, who will be representing the Harbaugh Nation, interestingly, because the dude apparently can't get out of the state of Michigan, even though he lives in Pennsylvania, but celebrates a team that's from Indiana. I need this guy to come in and give me this geography straight. Big Jim Nies of Huddle Up Inc. What the hell is going on? What part of the nation are we dealing with today? Oh, now you throw the Harbaughs in and just get me more confused. That's 2 states at once. 3. I don't even know where Jack's living. Son of a bitch. What's going on?
I believe Jack still has residency in Ann Arbor as his
okay,
full
so that's
time.
Still Michigan at least.
I'm sure he weather permitting will make the bounce over to Orchard Park this weekend. But
sure.
Yeah, big weekend in Harbaugh Nation.
No, yeah, I'm sure the Harbaugh fandom will be traveling. Even Jim at this point too, since his unfortunate demise after that, whatever the hell it was, by the Chargers this past weekend. Good gravy.
Yeah, that wasn't so
not
good.
great, Bob.
I hoped you had that one ready. Yes,
wasn't so good. But yeah, I mean, obviously last week I had the blue and yellow behind me. This week the lights changed to purple. We support our Harbaughs in all colors over here. But yeah, a tough weekend for the Chargers, but heck of a season for Jim.
While we're on the topic here, we also have our T Public merchandising, branding going on here.
I mean, I mean, this when the CEO shows up, you gotta rep the brand a little bit as well over there at the Huddle Podcast.
So now that we got that fun silliness out of the way, and we've established what part of the United States you're actually dealing with here.
Yes, Pennsylvania here will be cold this weekend as well, as I'm sure it will in Orchard Park.
Yeah, well, and let me get into this too, because clearly you have the football game of the weekend. That's why I took the time to bring it up on during the Student of the Game episode proper. Obviously, we're going to have conversations later in the week involving the other 2 games where Huddle Up panelist Matthew Mulheisen, as well as A7BN Sports' own BP Brian Paul will be in their respective Eagles and Chiefs fanhoods once again make their way here onto the Student of the Game studios. But all the above in mind, this game, I'm pretty sure I picked the Ravens on the Huddle Up podcast, but
yeah.
by the hour, I can have my mind changed. Like this might clearly be the best football game of that season, let alone of the playoffs. Right? I don't think that's a stretch.
Yeah, no, I think that there's a possibility that when we look back at the season about a month from now, we may be evaluating a situation where the best game was not played the second Sunday in February, but the the third Sunday in January. And yeah, it's the two what I would say is most complete teams, two best teams. Everybody's cruising right now, and it's two teams, Kyle, that really when you look at them, the Bills, we know the history of their early days, the fall off, the heartbreaking 4-year stretch in the 90s, you fall off again, and now like every year it's like they're one of the perennial teams, but they just can't get over the hump. Ravens are kind of there as well. Obviously, John Harbaugh has taken this team to the promised land with Joe Flacco. And now you have a guy who's one of the most dynamic quarterbacks this league has ever seen. And they just can't take that next step. Is this the year to do it? Is this the team to do it? And it's really a fascinating storyline going into this Sunday.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. Like, and here's the thing. For one, America needs the Chiefs to three-peat. I have said this already. Simply so we could stop this conversation of Tom Brady as the GOAT, because he's not. Period. Point blank. The story's over. Okay. If you want to have this conversation on your Huddle Up podcast at the end, or maybe part of a future Huddle Up project, more on that later, I'm more than happy to entertain the conversation and dunk harshly on any fool who says otherwise, because I will win that debate and have many times. But nobody wants to talk about that. What they want to talk about is the next game that America needs more than anything else is a Super Bowl victory from Lamar Demetrius Jackson. I feel like that win stops the conversation it'll never truly stop the detractors of Lamar Demetrius Jackson, simply because he represents change. People still to this day are critical of Michael Vick in ways that have nothing to do with football. Like, it's really awkward if somebody who was a Michael Vick fan says, that was my dog. Anyways, so that too soon? So with all that, that being said, I think Lamar Jackson, of the remaining quarterbacks, has the most pressure on him for that reason. Would you disagree?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I don't think that criticism will stop there. I mean, even when you're just talking about, some of the greatest, passers that never won or only won so many, Peyton Manning, like people at times will still talk about the, he didn't win as many as Brady did, and you talk about Dan Marino being the greatest quarterback, to never win a Super Bowl, right?
Well, like that's the 49ers' fault.
You know what I mean, right? There's always these, asterisks and buts and all of this when it comes to certain players. And right now, yeah, Lamar Jackson falls in that unfortunate company of, we know how great of a football player he is, but is he capable of getting his team to the next level? And there's been unnecessary criticism at times. So yeah,
even inaccurate criticism. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, and there's a ton of pressure on him, and especially with each passing year, right, wrong, or indifferent. If the Ravens don't win a Super Bowl, I have very close friends that are huge Ravens fans, and every year we have the conversation when they don't win a Super Bowl of, should the Ravens make a change, at the coaching position? Again, at most points in a team's history, there are hard decisions to be made with a legendary coach. So the longer that Lamar and John go through this journey together and don't get that ultimate prize, the pressure mounts for both of them, regardless of John already having one. It's so for him, for Lamar especially, ton of pressure. I would agree. Yeah, definitely the most out of anyone.
No, that's a fine analysis by you. I think that might be some of the best analysis I've ever seen, because part of your point completely breaks the world of 90s hip hop, because Tag Team told me that I like big butts, but I cannot lie. Yet you threw in a bunch of big butts that I hate regards to football history. So, props to you, sir. But that was funny. Screw all of you. Okay. But no, listen, I think you make a lot of the good points there, but let me focus a bit more on the game itself, because I think there are elements from both teams that are just completely overlooked. The first one for me in my mind is the Buffalo Bills defensive tackle core. Not just one guy, their core is excellent. But it's a fat guy, so nobody talks about it, right? So with those elements in mind, Jim, it can't just be Ram Derrick Henry. You have to establish it some other way and then kind of force other ways to make that, run game work. But with Lamar Demetrius Jackson, you could do that, right? Switch it to the other side with the Bills. They're balanced enough that the real question, let me bottom line it this way. Is this about the offensive coordinators just guessing right and getting big plays?
Possibly, and it's one of those wild things where, the Ravens, the best, most obvious sometimes way that they can attack is with Derrick Henry. There's a reason they went out and got Derrick Henry. Number one, he's a tremendous running back, and he's kind of defying the all of the age norms that we know, especially as a guy who's been a power lead back for his entire career. And he's still absolutely doing it. So they wanted to get somebody that could change that element of their game, and also take some of the pressure off of Lamar Jackson. Over the last couple of weeks, though, we've still seen Lamar, especially in the early portions of this game, doing that Lamar thing. And so the Ravens are going to attack you in a lot of different ways. I think the injury to Zay Flowers does impact how they're going to attack the game.
Huge impact, Jim. Huge.
Huge, yeah. So, but yeah, with Buffalo, you kind of know that they do come with a balanced attack. But the thing is, both quarterbacks are kind of that wild card. They can both change the game at any point. And I think for the offensive coordinators, and let's be 100% honest here, both of these quarterbacks in the moment, in the play, are going to do things. They're going to make guesses. They're going to decide to do things. And sometimes they're going to get it right. Sometimes they're going to get it wrong. That's the beauty of what Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen on the Buffalo side bring to a game. They are two of the most exciting players in the NFL today. And we're in for a treat for sure.
I think we're not getting enough talk about Zay Flowers missing in general. I feel like the fact that I had to bring it to the Room for the Huddle Up podcast really confounded me. But then again, when I remember that EJ Christian's on there, incomplete analysis is kind of a way of life. But I say all that to say this. Are we not talking enough about Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely in this football game?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously a key element. Early on this season, and I know this as a guy who drafted Lamar first and Mark Andrews second in my fantasy league. It was not a good start to the season, and
not great, Bob.
There was I'm sure Ravens fans, and then people like myself who went, is this the end of Mark Andrews? And as the season went on, he kind of, he was coming off of a pretty serious injury at the end of last year. So he was able to kind of find himself again. The camaraderie between him and Lamar once again found itself. Wasn't enough to get me a fantasy championship, but that's another situation for another day. But yeah, I mean, the tight end in an offense like this is such a huge part of what they do, and especially when a dynamic player like Zay Flowers is out. You still have some weapons, but you are diminished. So you have to find different ways to attack. And when you have a quarterback as dynamic as Lamar Jackson, he's gonna make plays where he's gonna extend the play. And it's going to cause Buffalo to move around on defense, and that's going to open it up for Likely, for Andrews to get open. And I think that's why they are such a dynamic portion of this Ravens offense. So yeah, it's going to be a huge factor if those two guys, one or both of them on the field at the same time, can find their open lanes.
Huge factor in the game. By the way, I think you have a soundbite handy for how many Mark Andrews fantasy points you had that opening week.
Oh yeah, sure do.
0.0.
Yeah. So, that one stung. that one hurt. That one did hurt.
Yeah, no, we don't often get a chance to get the 0.0, but yeah, I had to throw that in there, especially when the traveling producer soundboard is in the student of the game studio.
Always on the road. Always on the road.
That's right. No, have sounds will travel. I get you, buddy. Here's this, if I may.
Sure.
I am not the degenerate. Okay, if I would bet, I would have an angry bookie sounding something like
that. Money. You gonna give me my money? Where's my money, man?
So
I wasn't ready for that.
I avoid betting for that reason. I wasn't ready.
You're smart. You're smart that way.
That being said, I have won other people lots of money. It's the irony, right? It's the cold hard truth. But here's the thing. With this basically being a pick'em,
right?
We can't talk about a spread really. It's the Ravens giving up a point, which apparently that tells me that Vegas is expecting Baltimore to win, or maybe that's just the public money, and then whatever. We're recording this on a Wednesday, so the wise guys have not made their move yet, theoretically,
right?
With what little bit I know. I absolutely love the 51.5 on the over-under, though. Where do you sit on that?
Yeah, I mean the spread, is basically just a pick'em, really. I mean, when you're at 1 point, this isn't the Canadian Football League. You're not you're not beating that spread. But no, I think the 51.5. I think the 51.5 is a really good number. Especially when you look at what this team and what this matchup was earlier this year, because they played back in the early season. It was 35-10. Buffalo won. But there was, the Ravens were still kind of figuring things out at that point. So especially when you look at the last couple of weeks, Ravens offense has come a lot more live. Buffalo's offense still cruising. And I think that the big question is, if you are approaching that line, my advice, even though I probably won't take it myself, is don't. But if you're approaching the line, I think the big question you have to ask is, which Ravens defense are we getting? Are we getting the one over the past, about 5 to 7 weeks that have kind of made that adjustment since the bye week when they realize something isn't working here? They've adjusted their mindset. They've become a lot better defensively. They've been shutting teams down, and letting their offense work and do their bidding. Or are they gonna kind of revert back? Is Buffalo going to dictate some of their game, and that's going to cause more of a shootout environment? And weather is going to play a factor in these games, especially in cold environments. Pulling it up right now, again, possibility for change, but snow showers. Okay, now what snow showers mean in Orchard Park, New York, up there near the lake, could certainly change on a moment's notice. So
yeah,
if there's weather involved, you may be smart to think about holding off and looking at that forecast again before putting in one of those bets on that on that over under line. But yeah, I think if conditions are favorable, both these teams know how to play in cold, damp, even sometimes snowy weather. So
right.
There's a whole lot of risk there. I think the line is really, really good for where these teams are. Again, if you're smart, don't touch it. But if you're like me, you're gonna.
Yeah, well, and in the event you make that mistake, I mean, first of all, the fact that you've acknowledged one very truth. It's definitely a trap. Do not bet this thing. Black bars, right?
It's a trap.
Don't do it. But we'll do it 3 times, so we can.
It's a trap.
Yeah, okay.
We both have it.
That's what's up. That being said, if there is weather, another one that you have that I'm going to voice act, nothing is over. Don't pick the over for this game.
Nothing is over.
See, by the way, in the comments or on the socials, make sure say first or second if you think I voice acted the first or second one.
You did it well. I'll give you credit. That one was a good one.
Hashtag talent.
There you go.
Right, great, Bob. But you know that was me because that's not the sound bite.
It was.
So I listen,
Great, Bob.
man. Yeah, I'll agree with that assessment. So enough of this dancing around the actual issue. Jim, come down off the fence. I'm kidding. Come down off the fence and give me a prediction.
No, yeah, I think this is obviously a hard game to call. These are, like I said, two of, if not the absolute two best teams in football right now, and playing the best football probably of their entire season. But that said, I think the pressure of needing it more, needing to prove something more. Maybe it's kind of a theme of the postseason in both college or the NFL for a lot of teams this year is kind of righting past wrongs. And hopefully that'll be a theme of the weekend. But yeah, I think Baltimore wins this game. It is going to be tight. I think you're talking somewhere in the 3 to 5 point margin. So yeah, I'm taking Baltimore. If I'm touching the spread at all, I'm probably going to go at this point, seeing that there's snow showers in the forecast, probably a slight under. But if those kind of change and we just have cold, then bump it to the over if it stays that 51.5. But yeah, I think this is going to be an incredible game. Friends of mine are already talking about, weather permitting, here in central Pennsylvania, making plans to go watch this somewhere because it may be better than the Super Bowl. I don't know. We will have to see that when we get there. But yeah, Ravens move on. They go to the AFC title game and likely, no pun intended, actually a little intended, to see the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm sure.
Nice. No, listen, I'm with you on that. I'll say this: the Super Bowl will be a good game so long as the Lions make it. I'll just lead with that.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Homer. But
Never
Homer.
That being said, I've already, the way I picked the game for this podcast, Jim, is to remember what I picked on the Huddle Up podcast. And it also matched what I picked way back in early September when we did the simulcast for our predictions. I had Ravens, Lions. Other people didn't. Other people picked the Browns and the Jets to make the playoffs. That was all a thing. But yeah, it's a thing that happened, Jim. I'm not going to name names, but I'm sure you can guess. Mickey Delaney seems to pick the Bills. Hey, buddy, if it happens, I ain't mad at it.
It could easily happen, yeah. But I'm obviously this week, by the colors of the lights behind me, I'm a Ravens guy.
Yeah. That being said, here's the thing too. If not to say that Josh Allen doesn't have his level of pressure to get a Super Bowl, his playoff acumen being what it's been, but it's a whole other question. That being said, yeah, I think we both picked the Ravens. Mickey, I get you saying Bills. I don't think anybody's going to fault that. But the only thing that we could fault at this point is Father Time. We have reached the end of the episode. Big Jim, tell the world.
Yeah, you can follow me at Big Jim Sports, Twitter and Blue Sky. But more importantly, you can hit the link tree in my socials, or you can go to Huddle Up Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram's at Huddle Up Podcast Inc. The link tree is there. Go to our podcast feed, all podcast catchers, as well as YouTube. Give us a subscribe. Give us a like. We've had tremendous growth this year. I really appreciate all the feedback we've gotten. Hope it continues, and we're going to try and keep that momentum going in to our off-season program coming up here in a little over a month. But yeah, it's been a great year. I appreciate always coming on. I don't. Hopefully, maybe I'll get a chance to talk some more hardball football next week with you, but we will attack that when we can. But yeah, follow it where you will.
I mean, listen, if Notre Dame wins, maybe I'll have to have you back for a different fanhood and home. You're getting to have as many fanhoods as EJ Christian. What the hell's going on?
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, I don't think any of us can afford that. I don't know how he can afford that with how bad he is at betting. Oh, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to keep making these appearances, I have to start upping my my hat game and shirt game for some of these other teams. So I'll have to hop on the latest Fanatics sale and grab some Ravens merch, some Chargers merch, some Lions merch because I'm a homer there as well. So
I mean, you could always do something for T Public and then give back
to
the Huddle Up podcast. There's that.
That is true.
You're a CEO. You got to have these enterprising thoughts, man. But yeah, speaking of enterprising thoughts, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Jim, I am a cool kid. I am on Blue Sky at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings with the Fans for Sports Network covering the Orlando Magic, who are probably in the middle of playing their most important pre-All-Star break game against the Milwaukee Bucks, and I can't watch it because it's on NBA TV. Screw you, NBA. And, of course, my work on the Duval Dive. Just finished that before recording this with my friend, my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, Big Cat Country, doing a lot of talk about what's going on with Trent Baalke and the coaching hunt. And the first mock draft that Mel Kiper put out had a very interesting concept. By the way, I wrote an article about that too, Fans First Sports Network. Make sure you check out the Jaguars section on that. And then, of course, my work with the Black and Gold Banneret and the Night Shift podcast covering things UCF football and basketball. blackandgoldbanneret.com as well. I will be in Edition Financial Arena Saturday covering some more UCF women's basketball. They fought hard against a ranked TCU team in Fort Worth, but the Oklahoma State Cowgirls come to town, and that should be a fun battle there. Make sure you check out my work, blackandgoldbanneret.com. And then also Donnie Docs, Don Struble, will be in the building as Houston comes to town after that on Saturday, Edition Financial Arena, for a basketball doubleheader there at UCF. So for my dude, Carlton Henry, CHen, for my dude, Big Jim Nies, the CEO of Huddle Up Podcast, and the host, by the way, of 3 Count Thursday. I got you here. I tried to do, oh yeah, the cream rises to the top.
You
oh
did.
Yeah. And I landed that ish, and no one respected it. What the hell are we doing?
Well, sometimes you just can't trust that crew, you know. You just can't sometimes.
Oh yeah, you can't trust everyone, Big Jim. Oh yeah. Now, listen, with all that in mind, an honor, joy, and privilege. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.